Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. We have another Crash Bandicoot theory video for you. And this one is going to be exploring the origin of the lab assistants. So right off the bat, we see these characters in the very first cutscene of the original Crash Bandicoot game. So they've been here from like the very start. Like this is just the basic looking lab assistant. Slender, no pupils, large nose, lab coat. And as the franchise continued on, he made appearance. Well, not he, because it's a bunch of them. It's not just one guy. Through the games, their appearances change depending on the levels they're in. They're themed to them. Like if you go into a medieval level, they're knights. If you go into the skiing levels, or like the mountain snowy levels, they're skiers. And when you go into the space station, they've got jetpacks and what have you. Point being is, the lab assistants have been in the franchise from the start. Where the newest game came out, Crash 4, It's About Time, and the lab assistants are back. And then in the new Crash on the Run game, they seem to be making an appearance too. This is, I believe, the Frosty universe. So they have been in the game. They were in Crash 1, Crash 2, Crash 3, Crash Warped, which is Crash 3, Crash the Wrath of Cortex. Then they weren't in Twinsanity. They were in a bunch of the handheld games. They were in Boom Bang, and then they came back for It's About Time. So the lab assistants have been like a main staple of the franchise. Once you got into Twinsanity, most of the enemies were the ants from the 10th dimension. And then we got into Crash of the Titans, and the lab assistants got replaced with Raticians, which are pretty much rat versions of the assistants. I mean, they're not mutated rat versions of them. I'm just saying they filled the slot of that character. And as the series went on, we got different variants. Like I said, now there's actually female lab assistants. And then they come in different shapes and sizes. So we've got like the two-headed giant one from the level double header. And then this one, I thought it was obvious, but I was looking online and I couldn't see anyone agreeing to this. But I was under the assumption that all of these characters were different versions of lab assistants. But nowhere online did I see lab assistants pop up for these guys. People were saying that they were colleagues of Cortex, saying that these guys are, someone was saying these guys are clones of Cortex because they look like him. I don't know. I just assumed they were different lab assistants. But now we're going to get into their origin, which I'm sure a lot of people are just going to be like, oh yeah, we already know it. They're androids. Which in the secret warp room in Crash 3, when you, I believe, I don't want to misspeak because I don't remember the criteria needed to get to this, but you can see in the background they have the metal shell. They look like Terminators, and then they go into this press and come out looking with this one seems to be a knight, and he's going to go into the time twister orb and get travel back in time. Which, when I was younger and I was playing these games, I never thought they were androids. I thought they were like slaves of Cortex or clones maybe, and they had no pupils, so I thought they were brainwashed. But interestingly enough, there were hints from the first game that they were mechanical. Like in the last island of Crash Bandicoot 1, the first game, there was the electric lab assistants that, like, he didn't have any machinery or anything to shoot electricity out of him. I just assumed it was one of his abilities, but he's an android, so yeah, electricity. And then in Crash 2, I assumed this was like metal plating over his face, like a theming after Engine, but no. That's what their face looks like under the press. So yeah, the N on the chest and the whole android face. So, like I was saying, so everyone's like, oh yeah, no duh, of course, we already know this origin. But what if I were to tell you that it goes more in depth? So, in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled or Crash Nitro Kart, either or, when you go to the level Assembly Lane, I know this picture is really hard to make out what's going on, but I promise you, this is a lab assistant. Assembly Lane is making lab assistants, and they even have the N on the chest, so their Cortex is lab assistants. So, what's going on here? Cortex isn't from outer space, he's an Earthling, but on these far-off, distant planets, this is on Techni, you have a giant factory manufacturing lab assistants that Cortex uses. And then if you go to Terra, in Tiny Temple, there's monuments of these guys. So what's going on? The lab assistants are also from space? I promise you, I'm not trying to make all the origins of all these things from outer space. Oh, trophies from space, Wumpa fruits are from space. But I'm trying to find another reason as to why you would have a factory set up making lab assistants before Cortex even made it to outer space. The level was already there, or the factory was already there before Velo brought them up to outer space, manufacturing these lab assistants. And there's what seems to be old statues of the lab assistants. So, is it possible that Cortex stole alien blueprints? Wouldn't be the first time Cortex stole something. He stole Brio's Evolvo Ray plans, and he didn't steal, but he used Entropy's Time Twister stuff. So is it possible that Cortex got the designs and the mechanics to make his android henchman from outer space somehow? I don't know. I'd like to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comment sections if you think the lab assistants are also from outer space. As always, thank you for watching my video. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike, and I'd like to see your guys' opinions in the comment section. Take care. Have a good night.